Right, my name's Bridget Donald and I'm from Crown Church in Inverness, and my husband and I are down here on holiday, and we'd heard so much about the work that LUSS Church has done that we wanted to pop in and have a look, and we're really impressed with what we've seen so far. I was asked a bit about what Crown Church is doing with respect to fair trade, because one of the things we want to do is to become a fair trade church. I believe this is really important, a very practical way of helping third world countries. The Kirk Session has agreed and thinks this is a good way to go. What I and the group who are working with me have to do now is contact every organisation within the church to see if they're prepared to support fair trade. And what this will mean for them is agreeing to serve fair trade tea, fair trade coffee, fair trade sugar at any of their meetings or events, and committing to look at whether they would serve fair trade biscuits, cakes, etc., and where we would source them. And of course it means everybody will have to pay a bit more because the extra money goes to help the developing countries. But it is such a practical way of giving help that we really think it's a good idea, and we're trying to do that. And maybe if we can follow LUSS Church's example and get wired up, then we can tell you all about it when it happens.
So where did the idea come from?
We've always had a fair trade stall, or at least for the last 7-8 years. And we heard about the possibility of becoming a fair trade church through the Fairtrade Foundation website and through other churches that have done it. All the information is there on the Fairtrade Foundation website. It's also possible to become a fair trade town or city, and Inverness has done that, as have other towns in Scotland as well. And again, all the information is there on the Fairtrade Foundation website, so that's really where we've got it from.
And how far along the line are you to do this?
Right at the very beginning. The first stage was the Kirk Sessions agreement and encouragement for a group of us to go and do this. This second stage is the one that's going to take the work. That's going around the organisations to get their support to, as they run out of the tea, coffee, etc. they're using at the moment, to switch to fair trade products.
And have you had any opposition to it?
Not yet, but we're right at the very beginning. It's a big church. There are something like 17, 18 organisations, and we decided the best way to approach it was not to kind of put an article in the newsletter and say we're going to do this, but to personally approach each organisation and talk to them about it, which will take the time.
Do you go through a lot of tea and coffee?
There's quite a lot. And even the organisations that you wouldn't think would use it do. The badminton club have a coffee break and in between the badminton. And of course, organisations that don't necessarily drink tea and coffee when they meet, if they have an event like a coffee morning, then that's when we would be asking them to serve fair trade products.
So if somebody watching this didn't exactly know what fair trade was all about, how would you explain fair trade to them?
Right. Things that we take for granted, like tea, coffee, sugar, we forget that they're not grown in this country, they're not grown in Europe. They're grown generally in the third world, in some of the poorest countries in the world. These countries grow the tea, the coffee beans, which are then bought up usually by the biggest companies in the world who control the prices. So they don't necessarily pay very much to the farmers in, say, Africa, say, India, say, South America. So what fair trade organisations do is, for example, they will guarantee a price to the farmers. They will set up or help social initiatives, things like projects to give the farmers fresh water in the communities, fresh water, education, healthcare. The guaranteed price is maybe the most important thing, because prices will fluctuate when they're sold on the world market. This is getting a bit complicated. And if a big company controls prices just because of the amount of coffee or tea they buy, then the farmers don't know what they're going to get from one month to the next, and it might drop drastically low. So by guaranteeing a price to the farmers, the Fairtrade organisations by doing this, the Fairtrade organisations can enable the farmers to plan ahead, and they know what money is coming in, and therefore they know, what they can put back into their farm, or what they can spend on other things. So it can be a real lifeline for very small outfits, very small farms, people living in poverty we can't really appreciate because we have so much in this country.
So all going according to plan, when do you think you'll have rolled out fair trade all the way across the church?
That's a very good question. Across Crown Church, I would hope by the end of June, so that by the time everything is winding down for the summer, then everybody is agreed, and when all the organisations start up in the autumn, then that's when they'll be phasing out the coffee and tea they use if it's not fair trade, and then buying in. So I would hope that by Christmas there'll be nothing but fairly traded tea and coffee in Crown Church.
And are you hoping to take this beyond the church?
Well, Inverness already has, in terms of becoming a fair trade city. I don't know, I mean, maybe other churches in Inverness will, maybe there are some that are already fair trade churches. I haven't actually found that out. Maybe others that aren't will decide to go along that line as well.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.